Okay, well, I know there's really nothing new. I'm just about one of a few, probably one of millions of people on YouTube talk about this movie. So I know this video is going to absolutely get lost on YouTube, but the movie everyone's been talking about, Obsession. So I want to start my video by saying, when I was at Texas Frightmare Weekend a few weeks ago, it's a horror convention. So, you have a lot of horror fans, you have a lot of new horror fans, longtime horror fans, and a lot of longtime horror fans are going to talk about Texas Chainsaw or Friday the 13th, or just their favorites that have sort of stood the test of time, or long running franchises. That's usually what people talk about when, hey, what's your favorite horror movie? Hi, what's your favorite horror movie? That's just usually how the conversation goes there. But what's crazy is there's so many people there talking about Obsession, which was, I think, it had been out for like a week or two at that point, I think. So it was pretty new. And the fact that so many people were talking about it, I don't know how many conversations happened at that convention, but I was a part of at least two different conversations of random people never met before, just talking about Obsession. And so, of course, after that, I hadn't seen it yet at that point, but since then I now have. And I don't know how to explain to someone who's not a horror fan, but to horror fans, this is contender for movie of the year. It was that good. And I'm serious. I know a lot of movies that get so much hype, people either go in having super high expectations and it just doesn't meet those expectations, or a lot of people realize something's just overhyped. I don't think that's the case with Obsession. I think it really is just that good. And there's so many different layers to it. Like I said, this video is just gonna end up getting lost on YouTube because there's so many points about Obsession and so many themes that people are taking from this, that my review is just one of millions, which is crazy that there's so many people talking about it. So before we talk about the plot of the movie, the film's success has been on a lot of people's radar. I haven't checked the numbers in the past couple of days, but last I checked, it did succeed in hitting over 100 times its budget, which is crazy for a relatively small budgeted horror film. So it's absolutely insane. It's making records, and I think another thing about this movie that's crazy, that as part of its release, not really anything that has to do with the film itself, this is very much a prime example of the success of word of mouth. I mean, there wasn't heavy marketing for this. There wasn't millions put into marketing like the next Marvel or the next Star Wars movie. I mean, there just wasn't a lot of market. There was a trailer. That was it. I never saw an official trailer. I saw the teaser that had been released, months and months ago, where it just shows him in the car. It's that 20-second scene. That's really the only thing I ever saw about this movie, and that was enough to pique my interest. But with everyone talking about it, word of mouth is why, or how, I would say, so many people are going to see this, and they're seeing it again. So not only you have people who were interested in the first place, you have people interested because of word of mouth. You now have people interested just because it's popular. And now, with the movie, because there were creepy scenes throughout the movie, or it's a couple, you set aside the details and what happens around the movie. It is a couple in this movie, and what goes wrong or not. Couples going to the theater to see Obsession are now filming before and after seeing Obsession. And you have a lot of women are like recreating Nikki's either facial expressions or reactions or interactions. So now it's becoming trendy. It's an internet trend for couples to go and do this. So there's word of mouth, there's original trailer hype, and now it's an internet trend. There's so much going on about this movie, and I haven't even started talking about the plot. So basically, you have, I would say, four characters. There's a few other faces seen throughout the movie, but there's really about four named characters. You have these four friends. You have Bear and Nikki, and you have Ian and Sarah. And so Ian is the one trying to hype up Bear at times, and then he's sort of discouraging him at other times when it comes to the beginning of this movie. We learn at the beginning of the film that Bear lost his cat, and Nikki calls saying, hey, let's meet up. He's like, I don't really want to. She's like, well, she basically kind of convinces, hey, let's do it anyway. Maybe it'll be good for you. So he goes out, four of them are hanging out, and Nikki just wants to go home. The others want to party. So Bear's like, okay, I'll take you home. And he had already bought this one wish willow, this little present where you're supposed to open the box, break the thing in half, and whatever you wish for comes true. So he doesn't really believe in it at all, but he just thinks it's something nice for her. So he means to give it to her, but doesn't after dropping her off at her place. She gets out of the car and goes away. They're kind of talking. He was going to say something, but he chickens out, and he ends up using the wish to make her love him more than anything else in the world. And so, obviously, for the plot of a horror movie, this wish does in fact work, and now she is obsessed with him. I mean, that's what the movie's about. I'm just gonna have to use that word over and over again. There's no other way around it. Sorry, guys. So now that she's into him all of a sudden, with some back and forth, she ultimately ends up getting the car, deciding to go to his place when he refuses to go inside her place. And in this opening scene of her becoming this infatuated version of Nikki, she sort of slips back into the original Nikki, where she's freaking out, where as if she doesn't know what just happened, but then goes back into character, for lack of a better term that I'm going to use for the video, and off they go. So when they get to Bear's house, she's doing all these things that is what a girl obsessed with a guy would do, and he's freaking out. He doesn't really understand it at first. And for viewers, it's like, okay, well, the wish worked. You should expect this. But for him, this is, for, even though there is magic used in this movie, these characters don't believe in any of it. He doesn't expect that to be real. So it's the last thing on his mind. Hey, what if the wish on a whim actually was true and had actual power to it? That's the last thing on his mind. So he's wondering, as he's talking with his friend Ian the next day, and his friends amongst the movie, is she on drugs? Is she relapsing? Is she going through something? They're just trying to come up with any answer other than his wish worked. Of course, we'll ultimately come to this conclusion that, later on in the film, but for a while, he's just sort of accepting it. He's like, hey, that's the girl I wanted now. She's into me, so okay. He's sort of questioning the morality of it, but at the same time, he's really not fighting it. So you have this morality within him where, yes, he's very much a bad guy, even though at first he doesn't really understand. So I would say for parts of the beginning, he's not really trying to be the villain, but once he understands what's going on and he neglects to try to help her, he very much becomes a villain at that point in the movie. And so obviously with Nikki, there are moments, which is really interesting because I had just seen an interview with the director where he said there were moments in the beginning of the film before the wish was used. He had to film certain instances in the beginning where Nikki was into him, and he filmed scenes where she wasn't. And he didn't select one version to put into the movie. He selected bits and pieces from each version. So I think it's meant to leave her feelings for him ambiguous. You don't really know if she's actually into him or not. And I think the ambiguity really works for the plot of this film. I think it just kind of leaves us on the edge of our seat wondering what's really going on, who's really interested in who, I guess, as far as Nikki's concerned. And so I think the ambiguity really played into the part of, did she ever really want him or really love him, or was she just freaked out from the start? So obviously those things play toward our finale. But most of the middle is pretty much her absolutely going crazy. And there's a lot of details. If you're familiar with Obsession, you've seen clips online. There's so many clips of her creepy standing in the dark, the walking backwards, her smile, her facial expressions and body language, I think is probably one of the strongest parts of her performance. She's just a damn good actress. But for a horror movie specifically, she was able to use facial expression, body language to create intense, creepy scenarios without loud music or CGI or monsters or some horrific R or X-rated scene happening. The actress was just able to create that just by sort of standing around, really. And I think it's extremely impressive to be able to convey that sort of unsettling feeling just with those sort of body languages alone. So I just found that extremely impressive. And so obviously as we go on throughout the film, Nikki is doing worse and worse acts as the Wish Nikki, I guess as we could say. And as she's slipping back into the old Nikki for only moments at a time, we finally get this scene where Sarah, his friend, the four of them, their friend, they're all in this one friend group. Sarah wants to meet up with Bear after there's this party gone wrong, pretty much. And she wants to spill some secrets to Bear, and he has a conversation with Nikki where he's like, "Oh, shoot, he's trying to leave her asleep in bed and sneak off." And she wakes up and is like, "Hey, it's actually me. She says she's asleep." And I think what's interesting is the director intentionally stated this isn't supposed to be a demon or some supernatural force. This is just a new forced version of her. And so the fact Nikki's like, she's asleep, she tries to have a conversation asking for help. She's supposed to be killed. She doesn't want to have her body and mind and mouth and everything controlled anymore. And Barrett's basically like, is this so bad? He basically just absolutely neglects her. At this point in the film, if we haven't been convinced before, this is absolutely the moment where he just becomes the villain of the movie. Because when you have someone who now you see, by the effects of what you've done, now she's wanting to die, and he doesn't want to do anything to help her. So it becomes sad. You start to feel bad for Nikki at this point. You did anyway. But this is the moment that I think the tonal shift is created where you no longer feel sorry for Bear at all whatsoever. And so he goes to Sarah, and they're kind of flirting a little bit. And it's crazy how he wished basically her free will away, Nikki's free will away. And he got everything he wanted, and he still almost cheats on her. So I think that's a theme a lot of people are talking about, where even if you get everything you want, you're not always going to be happy. Or the thing you think that you've wanted for yourself turns out to not be what's best for you after all. There's so many themes of that variety that you can take away from this movie. But Sarah ultimately is killed in this scene in another horror fashion and style, which is absolutely gruesome. And Ian is kind of next. Don't really mean to skip over all that, but Bear basically goes to Ian. He's trying to undo the wish. He wants to fix everything. And now, there's so much damage done. People have died now. And there's so much damage done. He brings this wish to Ian. Ian's like, not believing any of it, because of course, why would he? And Bear wants him to say, hey, reverse my wish that mine was reversed and I have to go back to normal. So he wishes for $1 billion, which of course it falls from the sky, and he doesn't buy it at all. And so Bear has to go back home and face Nikki, who's absolutely unhinged at this point. You got Sarah corpse in the other room, and she's just, this is visually the most unhinged version of her is in this finale. And Bear finally decides, okay, he's basically decided, I'm just going to commit suicide. Because when he tried to call the number on the back of the one in which Willow said as long as he's alive, the wish is in effect. So now he's ready to, okay, if I die, it'll free her. So this is, I think, where a lot of people get into that gray area, because he's doing this for her. He's trying to set her free. But at the same time, he's kind of just leaving her with this mess. But at least she'll be free. But, so, there's pros and cons of both. And, it sucks he has to kill himself to end this disaster he's created. But that is ultimately what happens. And he, holds Nikki one last embrace because he is dying. And in their finale, Nikki is set free. But in the final shot, she's just left with the horror. She has the body of one of her friends. Ian has also entered the house at this point. So if you think about it, Sarah, Ian, and Bear, she now wakes up to all three of her friends' dead bodies in this house. So it's absolutely a raw, interesting, and just sad story. But from a horror element, or from a horror standpoint, I would say, it was extremely well made. The storyline was very interesting. It was creepy. They were able to create those scary scenarios without, like I said, CGI or monsters or what have you. So everything they tried to do worked perfectly. So I absolutely love the movie. Like I said, I don't really have any complaints about the movie whatsoever. I really try to pick it apart, and I've been thinking about it for like a week now and think, what didn't I like about it? And I don't know, maybe I'm just, when it comes to reviewing movies like this, maybe I'm just too simple, but I don't know. There's nothing I dislike. So for me, this was a perfect film. It's an absolutely stunning horror film. I love the story. I thought the fact there are so many different kinds of themes you can take from it. There's different lessons to be learned. The acting is incredible. Go check this out. I mean, like I said, there's so much about Obsession. You can just type in Obsession on YouTube or Google, and you'll have so many different things come up. Yeah, there's plenty of interviews, plenty of clips. There's a trailer. There's behind the scenes facts you can look up. There's so much about this movie. And the more I learned about it, it's just more and more fascinating to me. So check this one out if you haven't seen it for yourself. This is definitely one I think we should go to theaters to see, not only because it's good, but to help support this crazy success that Obsession has had at the box office. So if for anything, go support this movie if you're interested in it. All right, that's it. Thanks, guys. Keep it digging.